This is called Hair Revolution by Cynthia Colbert. It's kind of funny because every time I see her name, I want to say Colbert like Stephen, but anyway. I was 8, and every 2 weeks took the bus to Miss Jerry Pearl, who did hair in her basement. Smell of burnt hair and grease. Girl, your hair sure is nappy and dirty this time. What have you been into? Running around with frizz and naps. What would folks think? Why, they would think I was just a kid, having all the fun I could get my hands on, although it would have been nice to have hair like my friend Dixie, who sat next to me at school. Hers was all nice and shiny and long and blonde. I was 14 and wore my psychedelic lime green bell-bottoms like a badge of honor, but something was missing. I pleaded, Mama, please let me wear an afro. Girl, why would anyone want to wear that mess? I'll never know. Running around looking all wild. What would folks think? Why, they would think I was black, beautiful, and proud like my girl Nikki G, talking about men in their tight, tight pants and big afros. And maybe, just maybe, they would know that I was about black power on the order of Eldridge and Stokely or Huey. When Mama finally said, okay, honey, I had me an afro that would have made Angela Davis proud. Painstakingly braided every night, picked, shaped, and patted. I was 16, and Revlon was calling my name. Had to get a perm and Farrah Fawcett blonde streaks. Then later, Aretha reddish brown. While others tried alcohol and weed, I experimented with my hair. Why would you want to perm your hair? You just want to be like the white girls. I heard Jerry Lynn Barnes' hair fell out in patches because of that stuff. No boy wants a bald-headed girl. What would they think? Maybe they would think I was beautiful with my shiny, silky hair, parted down the middle and feathered to the back, with just a few blonde streaks around my face. Or maybe they would show me some R-E-S-P-E-C-T if it was Aretha Red. Maybe they wouldn't notice how big my butt was getting or the breakouts on my face. I'm just trying to find me. I was 20, bound by the box that had promised shiny, silky, even sexy hair, burning my scalp, my ears, my hair, a delicious agony to hair that's mine and his. Isn't it time to do something to your hair? Getting a little nappy around the edges. Want my wife to look good when we go out. What would people think? Why, they would think that I was a young housewife and mother, loving and nurturing, whose kids and her man were well cared for. I may be your wife, but these edges are mine. Trust me, I know when my hair needs to be done. Functional when it needs to be, sleek and sexy when I need it to be. I can cook up the bacon, fry it up in the pan, and never, never let you forget, well, you know the rest. There goes 30, now here comes 40, and during this what? 1.5 hour ordeal at least twice a week. Shampoo, blow dry, curling iron. Don't they know that a single working mom wants hair that looks good but is easy to take care of? Fashion with ease. I'm not that hard to please. Wash and wear hair, but do I dare? You work in an office. A nice relaxed bob is the corporate look, and it's fairly easy to care for. If you wore those braids, locks, afro, select one, to work, why, what would they think? They would probably find it fascinating, as they all seem to think our hair is. Can I touch it? It doesn't look as if it would be so soft. How do you do that? You can do so much with your hair. And the stares and questions would end once the novelty wore off. What would they think? Who cares?
So after 2 centuries in bondage, a unique homegrown system of black hair care had developed. Over the years, the goal of grooming the hair had morphed from the elaborate and symbolic designs of Africa into an imitation of white styles adapted to black kinks and curls. Both women and men were interested in straightening their hair because straight European hair had held up as the beauty ideal. So there existed neither a public nor a private forum where black hair was celebrated in America. And without the influx of Americans to the slave population, it was difficult for blacks born and raised in captivity to take pride in their kinky locks. Without the combs, herbal ointments, palm oil used in Africa for hair dressing, the slaves were forced to use common Western household products and equipment to achieve certain styles. Instead of palm oil, the slaves took to using oil-based products like bacon grease and butter to condition and soften the hair, prepare it for straightening, and make it shine. Cornmeal and kerosene were used as scalp cleaners, and coffee became a natural dye for women. Several methods of straightening the hair were concocted by ingenious blacks who were short on commercial products. So men would slick axle grease meant for wagon wheels over their hair for a combination dye job and straightener. Women would slather their hair with butter, bacon fat, or goose grease, and then use a butter knife heated in a can over a fire as a crude curling iron. Sometimes a piece of cloth warmed over a flame would be pulled across the head and worn for a short while to stretch the curls out. Women also wrapped their hair in strings, strips of nylon, cotton, or eel skin to decrease the kink and leave looser curls. Some slave mothers took to wrapping their children's hair to start training it to grow and training it to straight as early as infancy. The most mordant device used to straighten the hair was lye, mixed with potatoes to decrease its caustic nature. This creamy concoction was smeared on the hair, and the lye would straighten the curls. Unfortunately, it could also eat the skin right off a person's head. So good and bad hair. The quest for straight hair was often a torturous obsession for the slaves, but it was not just about conforming to the prevailing fashions of the day. Straight hair translated to economic opportunity and social advantage, because many of the more than 100,000 free blacks in 19th century America were the mulatto offspring of the first African arrivals and their European companions. Lighter skin and loosely curled hair would often signify free status. In fact, many light-complected slaves tried to pass themselves off as free, hoping the European features would be enough to convince bounty hunters that they belonged to that privileged class.
Tenderheaded by Nikki Finney. I am and have been since they used to pass me around by my 3 mule braids like a bowl of briar berries no one wanted to touch but everyone wanted to see. You take her. Oh, no, ma'am, I had her last time, remember? Nobody wanted to straighten this hair, and I didn't want nobody to. Cotton mud brown and continent thick, they made bets on what color my scalp was and how long it would take to get there, then would circle all around, hover over the swivel chair just to know who had won and who had lost. Easily, it was a day's travel from the first to the last sizzling stroke. Afterward, whoever lost politely walked over and regretfully informed the rest of her waiting customers she was unavailable for the rest of the day. While in the back room, already she was soaking her fingers in a bowl of something sudsy and smooth, readying them for their ordeal, and for the next 4 hours I was hers. By large, unsympathetic, twisting fingers she would take me unmercifully from chair to sink, to chair, to dryer, back to chair, and then finally lead me up front near the window, just under the Clyburn's Beauty Shop sign, somewhere safe and far away from those hands, where my scarlet and throbbing head, where my scorched ears could cool better. Behind me I could hear her, back with her girls now, her fingers returned to that sudsy bowl, waiting, I suppose, for the color and the feeling to return. I could hear her, I could hear them all good, talking and teasing about how the Lord must have mixed me up with somebody else, maybe even 2 or 3 people, giving me all that hair and tender-headed too. Saying how some poor soul out on the street right now, walking around with a big old buffalo brush and just a finger snap of hair, steady pleading their mama or maybe even an auntie for some squatting time inside that sacred place of places. And once inside those gaping legs, how eyes would close while hands scratched and brushed to high heaven, how they would sit so perfectly still while their scalp got raked and planted, making sounds like they never wanted it to stop. Still not knowing they so mismatched, not knowing maybe I got some of what belongs to them. Just like them ladies don't know how good I hear their laughter ringing off the glass that my head has made into my cooling board. Just like they don't know how hard I'm trying not to hear them, how hard I'm steady peeping and looking outside and longing for to get away, right away, inside the safety of that 69 Buick and back beside the generous giver of this tender-headed crown.
So now there's no excuse for nappy. 1964. In 1901, Sarah McWilliams, of 34, was a widowed single mother with no formal education, supporting a daughter in college on the income she made washing other people's clothes. 9 years later, the Guinness Book of World Records hailed this very same woman as the first self-made female American millionaire. With inspiration gleaned from a fanciful dream, McWilliams, better known to the world as Madam C.J. Walker, came to symbolize all that black hair stood for in the first half of the 20th century. An avenue to success and respectability, black nationalism and expression, controversy, and heated debate, black hair unleashed its power on an unsuspecting world. The New Negro, 1900 through 1920. It was a new year, a new century, and there was a new Negro. Blacks in America had survived enslavement, a civil war, and emancipation that left them economically and politically at a crippling disadvantage compared with whites. Yet the 20th century was the first time that blacks were collectively a free people, able to exercise more than minimal control over their lives and destinies, albeit in a racist society. It was a time of promise and progress, as well as one of hard work and the reconfiguring of many ideas, norms, and ideologies. Blacks, no longer distinguished as free or slave, began the century by shaping their collective identity, and the politics of appearance was to play a pivotal role.
Hot Comb by Natasha Trethewey. Halfway through an afternoon of Coca-Cola bottles sweating rings on veneered tabletops and the steel drone of window fans above the silence in each darkened room, I open a stiff drawer and find the old hot combs, black with grease, the teeth still pungent as burning hair. One is small, fine-toothed, as if for a child. Holding it, I think of my mother's slender wrist, the curve of her neck as she leaned over the stove, her eyes shut as she pulled the wooden handle and laid flat the wisps at her temples. The heat in our kitchen made her glow that morning. I watched her wincing, the hot comb singeing her brow, sweat glistening above her lips, her face made strangely beautiful as only suffering can do. I think, no,